Hey guys, my name's Khadroth, and today I wanted to talk to you about JP. JP is going to have the new Grand System installment coming in here on the 20th of this month for Berserkers. Now, Berserkers are definitely an interesting class. Everybody's got their favorites, but let's talk a little bit about the actual farming of the Grand Berserker materials. Now, technically, we don't know what the next raid style of farming would look like on JP. It might be an AoE battle as opposed to a single target one. But I think if we go based off of the way things worked for the first one, we can extrapolate the idea that they'll probably do something similar. So with that in mind, I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about what Berserkers would actually serve that purpose and be really good for you to kind of think of and use in your party compositions for taking down that fight. And that's going to be something that I think is going to cause people a little bit of trouble, because Berserkers are not the best class known for their supportive capabilities. They're definitely really high offense, and that is absolutely to their benefit, but that is a double-edged sword in the case of Berserker on Berserker violence, so that's going to be something to pay attention to. It'll be very curious to see how the devs do things this time around, but since we know it's coming on the 20th here, it's best to get prepared as soon as possible. Now again, there are a ton of Berserkers out there in the game, but we're going to start with a couple that we think can actually help you out. So to begin with, Nightingale is going to be an obvious choice from a supportive standpoint. That is to say, Nightingale has at least the capability of buffing units. The problem that you're going to really have when you're going for using your Berserkers is that there's just not a lot of Berserkers that have any sort of charge support for you. There's obviously Berserkers that have charge for themselves, but nobody that has it for, again, really the party necessarily, though we do have one or two exceptions. And that's something to pay attention to, but again, she's at least going to have debuff immunity. She's going to have extra damage herself versus humanoids, but she doesn't have an offensive NP. And she does at least have the ability to buff a ally's buster attack performance. That's going to be really good for her. Similarly, someone like Penth might also do a lot of work for you. Depending on who they choose for the Grand Berserker for this time around, which again, it does not have any lore bearing whatsoever for who they choose. The devs have said that before. Something you guys should understand is that, like, Penth may actually be a really strong unit in these types of scenarios. Maybe not necessarily for one-shotting. There's a little bit of wind-up, but she does at least have some buffing capability. Now, obviously, Penth is, like a lot of other Berserkers, triple buster, and she's anti-Greek male, but she does have the ability to increase the party's attack and buster performance for 3 turns. So that can really help you out. And at least she herself does get NP charge per turn to the tune of 20% if you have that skill Lord. So she could be another decent supportive character for you. Paul Bunyan is going to be another welfare style character that can also end up buffing the party. Bunyan at least has the party's buster buff there, can heal at least a little bit, though admittedly anemic HP on Bunyan, so be careful, but also the ability to reduce the enemy's defense for 3 turns. You can use this to get a little bit more firepower out of her. Brynhildr can be another one here that definitely Summer Brand is not going to be one that everyone's going to have, but she is an AoE one. She does, similar to Penth, have NP charge per turn. She can eventually get herself to an NP, but she also has the ability to increase the performance of other Berserkers that have the Loved One trait, which if you guys pop that open, this is again the Brynhildr's beloved aspect. So you guys can see other Berserkers here that she could potentially work well with, including in particularly Kentoki and Vlad, both of which who have charge on their own. So maybe combining something in there could be really good. And even Sojiro, who we'll talk about here in a minute. Next up here is actually going to be Louhi. Louhi is, as everybody kind of knows, ever since she came out, she's been a really solid Berserker. She's AoE, she's got 80% charge, but she's also going to be one of the few that actually has party charge. This is going to be super valuable to you if you are finding yourself really short on charge to get your berserkers to be able to like one turn the stuff that you're trying to take out. So this can really help you as you're starting to get up into those higher rarity of difficulty nodes for trying to one-shot it, as Lohi might be able to either take out a swath of enemies should the situation call for it, or just plain charge the party to help out, which is something that the Berserker class is really going to be lacking. Same deal, Morgan Le Fay, also another decent AoE. She's obviously anti-man, and that can definitely work for her. But she does at least have her own 50% charge potential. But also, you could instead say, hey, I'm going to get 30% charge from her, maybe get another 20% from her mana loading, and then instead put her second skill on somebody else to give them 20% charge. So again, she's AoE, so maybe not the most ideal set of circumstances depending on what the raid is, but you do at least have the ability to have a targeted charge skill with Morgan. Same thing with Castoria Berserker, aka Zertoria as I like to call her. She's also going to have a lot of charge potential on her own, up to 70% here, but she's also going to end up having the capability of charging one ally's gauge by 20%. So that can really work for them and allow them, similar to how you were using it with Morgan, to be able to maybe charge somebody else up besides just her, as she might not need it, since again, her own first skill is 50% for herself. And again, she's going to be a really, really solid one if we're just talking about niches, because Castoria Berserker is anti-threat to humanity should in a situation call for it, but I doubt it here. But she would at least be chaotic, anti-chaotic alignment, anti-divine, depending on who's chosen. That could be really, really useful niches for Castoria Berserker. Another interesting one here, and the next two are actually going to be welfare style of units, is Jerker here, aka John Ultra Berserker. She's not got any supportive capability now as we're looking at this, but she does at least have 20% charge for herself, and she is free. So she's one of those units that almost everybody can have and utilize effectively for being able to take out the enemy that we're facing. And again, she has still got a really, really strong NP, especially if you have all of her copies. Similarly here, we can also look at basically Sojiro, aka Sono G. He is a fantastic support, or not support, welfare, in the sense that he can also basically charge himself. So remember one of the gimmicks, and this is going to kind of apply to all the Berserkers, as again, we denoted at the beginning of the video that charge is a valuable commodity to the Berserkers. One of the things that you can do is, if you have them at Bond 10, you can just go ahead and say, you know what, I don't want their Bond CE effect, I would rather have 50% charge. And that's going to be really valuable for any of the other Berserkers out there to kind of get them to that Noble Phantasm faster. Otherwise, you're going to be having to start them with a charge CE in order to get them up there, which is definitely going to cut into their damage output, as opposed to using something like a Black Grail, or again, a like any other CE that could just get them more offense than a 50% charging CE could. So as we look at Sono G, one of the big things that he obviously has, he can buff himself, he can buff his card values, but as you guys can denote here, he can multiply the value of his NP gauge. So depending on whatever his starting value is, he can basically double that amount if you have this skill Lord. So if you start him at 50%, he can immediately double it. He's at 100% charge. And on top of that, Sono G, whenever he fires off his Noble Phantasm, will kill himself. So you can actually use this to your advantage if you know you can't one-shot. You can maybe have Sono G fire off an NP early, then have him basically come in from the back line, or have him die and have him rotate someone in from the back line in order to be able to actually kind of get another offensive unit into the rotation to help you take out the boss. Now, from here on out, still no supportive capabilities, but now we can talk about some other decent options for people that could just be strong against the upcoming grand fight. Lilith, obviously very new on JP. She's a 50% charging unit there in that regard, having, again, some really, really nice capability Also 3 turns of attack up, ignore invincibility, so you're not going to be too worried about anything that the enemy can throw at you. But she's also going to be anti-lawful and anti-good, which is definitely going to be really, really valuable for her. And she can also change the enemy to chaotic or evil. So you could use this as somebody like maybe use Lilith into Castoria Berserker, and that can actually set up the enemy to be chaotic for Castoria Berserker. So there's a lot of stuff you guys can do to kind of set yourself up for success and make units hit harder. Same deal, she's going to get that super effective against charm status, so as long as the enemy isn't immune to that or highly resistant, you can definitely count on that for some extra damage. Kentoki's going to be another 50% charging Berserker, so there you go. If you have him granted, you start him out with that 50% CE, or at least the 50% effect instead of the Bond CE effect. He's definitely going to be another one that can do some really, really solid work for you. His biggest issue is going to be the 1-turn attack up, so be careful with that, but he's definitely going to be a solid option. Creamhild's also going to be another 50% charger. She's also anti-dragon, should somehow the enemy choice actually have that. So that is another sort of food for thought there. She can also remove the enemy's defensive buffs should the situation allow for it. But again, I'm going to bet that that will not actually come into play. Vlad the Third here is also going to be a 30% charging Berserker, which if you have his mana loading append unlocked would bring him to 50%, so he could be another viable option for people. And as we start to look down the list here, assuming there's maybe an AoE situation at play, Arjuna Altar and Ibuki Doji, both of them can have quite a bit of charging capacity. Same thing with Sendo Rikyu, basically kind of one for each card type there for an AoE Berserker that at least has charge. Again, but that's going to depend on the makeup of the node and what we're facing. Also, just kind of honorable mentions here. Oda Nobunaga, really great against anti-divine stuff. And again, Mysterious Heroine X Alter is also going to be anti-good and not the anti-saber. That's not going to matter. But again, at least has quite a bit of upgrades in her kit, though neither of them will have charge. So getting them to fire off their NP the first time, definitely going to be a little bit rougher. So again, let me know with who you guys are going to potentially go with and who is going to be your grand for the Berserker Grand System. I'll be curious to hear you guys' thoughts. Again, I hope you guys found this informative and helpful if you're maybe struggling to come up with compositions for it. So again, good luck and happy hunting, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're almost to 18,000 subs. We'll celebrate with a barbecue mukbang when that happens.